Hello, we're Parental Mentals, and I'm Claire.
I'm Marcus.
And today we thought we'd talk about perfectionism because it came up in a couple of our discussions.
Mainly because I'm perfect. Or
Yeah.
not, obviously.
And we thought it was quite interesting because since those discussions, it kind of feels like it just keeps coming up, especially for me.
I didn't notice you'd had your nails done. When did that happen? They look pretty perfect, to be fair. Look at those.
Yesterday.
Oh, you snuck out while I was working, didn't you?
I did.
I think you did mention it, and I didn't get too excited about it, and you got annoyed at me. I've got a vague recollection of that.
Yeah, I came home and I was like, oh, look. And then he just doesn't even say anything.
You didn't go, oh, look? You didn't go,
No,
oh, look?
no, maybe I didn't do
you didn't
that.
go, oh, look. Don't be trying to blag it like I'm not very observant.
I can't remember
You
what
said,
I did.
I was sat in the chair working, and you came in and said something like, oh, I want to get my nails done. And I didn't respond. And you then said,
That
oh,
was it. I
you're
was really
mean.
annoyed. Because you meant to just be like, yeah, treat yourself, baby.
Well, yeah, but I was in the zone. I was working, and you're like, oh, yeah, fishing for me to go, darling, just go, be a perfectionist and
Spend
look
all that
perfect.
money on your nails.
Yeah.
I hate doing it. I hate spending money on my nails, but I absolutely love having my nails done.
But is that not kind of what we're talking about as this need for perfection?
No, that definitely is something different. For me, it's like dopamine, it's joy. It makes me feel good. It doesn't
But
make me
why?
feel perfect.
But it is like a perfectionization of your hands, isn't it? Because why did you want your nails to be done?
It just makes me happy.
Yeah, but what about having your nails done makes you happy?
Seeing the colour, the way it makes my hands move, multiple things.
Hang on a second. The way it makes your hands move.
Yes, you're not going to understand this. You can't understand. Women will understand. It makes your hands move in a certain way.
What, when you
and
get your
it feels
nails
nice.
done?
Yeah, it does, because you feel more fancy.
What, they're a bit more aerodynamic when you're trying to poke people's eyes out?
No.
I don't know. I don't know where you're going with this that makes your hands move. What? Anyway, so I think personally, and obviously we've massively gone off topic before. We're not off topic, but we've lost our
Tangent already.
The whole nail thing is part of the perfectionism. They're a bit pointy. Just show the camera. What? I mean, they're not normally that pointy. What's the pointiness about?
It's called a stiletto.
Oh, is it? Right. You're going to stiletto a guy's eyes out. So they make
Maybe
your hands
just
move
yours.
better, but you don't believe that this is part of the perfectionism issue that you've got.
No.
And so what is this part of it? And it's just, for you, it's just a nice thing to do.
This is just joyful, colourful, makes me
Expensive.
feel good. It is expensive. I don't do it very often.
No, you don't, to be fair. We're not
As
very
a
lavish.
treat.
Yeah.
A treat.
Okay, well, let's move on from the way
Let's.
that getting your nails done makes your hands move differently. I feel like I cut you off, though. Like, what? Let's just go back a little
you
bit.
did. I was
Sorry.
in a flow.
Go, right. Why does it make you happy? Let's go there again.
Are we still talking about the nails?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I'm still intrigued. Why does it? Because I think it's part of the perfectionism thing. Why is it not part of the perfectionism? Why is it just getting that dopamine? What is the dopamine hit about? Why do you get that dopamine hit? What does it make you feel
The self-care of doing it, so going and having an hour just where you're just sort of being pampered, that is a self-care thing. It makes me feel good. I always go for a colour, and I enjoy, it's quite stimmy. I enjoy seeing the colours, and it's a bit stimmy for me to look at.
Okay, so the whole experience is quite good for your neurodivergence, but what is it, like afterwards?
Or bad, depending on the nail person, because I have a real sensory issue with it as well.
But what you're talking about there is the experience and having the nails done. But afterwards, once the nails are done, it makes you feel better. Does it not make it feel a little bit more like, hi, I'm here to conquer the world? Do you know what I mean? I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it makes you feel good about yourself, no?
Yeah.
So that's more what I'm alluding to, is that kind of perfection.
Well, possibly. I haven't ever seen it like that because I just really enjoy getting it done. It's not, oh my God, I look shit because I've not had my nails done.
But you do feel like there's sometimes...
But there are times I feel like that.
Let's say you're going for an audition, you've not got your nails done. You're like, oh my God, I need to get my nails done.
Yeah, but that is completely different. It's your job. I have to have my nails done for auditions or for jobs. If I turn up to a shoot with manky ass nails, I'd get sacked, or my agent would be like, what are you doing? You're embarrassing.
Maybe, I suppose. But
It's pathetic and shallow and awful as that is.
No, but that's my
is the
point,
industry.
is that actually your career is geared towards being perfect. Like the whole thing, the whole kind of imagery that the society portrays on young women and stuff, it's like, look perfect, no?
Yes, and actually that's a really interesting point, babe.
Thank
that
you.
we haven't kind of hit on in terms of our prep for talking about it today. But I had this exact problem on a job, and I turned up. It was a modelling job and it was a fashion job, and I don't normally get those because I'm far too short and far too old.
And you've got a skinhead.
No, they like the skinhead. That's why I got the job. They don't like the fact that I'm old and what was the other thing?
I can't
Too
remember.
Too short. So those two things go against me, which is why I don't normally get them. But for some reason, I got this brand, right? And it was absolutely awesome. But I felt I had the worst imposter syndrome I have ever had. Like, it crippled me. It really crippled me. And I remember voice noting you and several other people. Voice note? What was that?
It's your phone, isn't it? And voice noting.
That's how you know I'm old. This is what I mean. I'm too old to be on those sets. And I was voice noting my friends. Well, I've only got one friend. One friend and my sister, who's like a friend.
You've got more than one.
No, let's
friend.
not go there. Anyway,
You have got
one
more than
friend. And yeah, I was voice noting them, explaining how awful I felt. I was like, I shouldn't be here. Like, they've made a massive mistake. I've turned up and they're all looking at me thinking, why is she here? Like, who picked her out of the lineup? What's going on? Because of the perfectionism. Also those things in terms of I felt too old. Everyone was 20 years younger than me, genuinely 20 years younger than me. So there's all these factors that fed into my perfectionism going absolutely insane. And I just felt the worst about myself that I've ever felt in that situation. But through voice noting everybody, and you were texting me as well all day because you're ace, because that is the job. That is absolutely the job, and it will eat you up and spit you out and leave you a shadow of a person, I think. And I remember saying to you, if I had been on that job 20 years ago as a young woman, I think I would be in a really bad place now. I don't think it's a positive place a lot of the time for people, for young women. Especially on that job, you were very much treated like just this kind of piece of skin and bones that didn't really have any kind of personality or soul attached, and you were just this clothes horse.
But that is what being a model is.
And that is what being a model is. But I've never experienced that before. I've always had really amazing, positive, wonderful experiences on shoots. So that was quite a shock to me, and it really fed into my perfectionism issue.
But this is why it's so hard to be a young woman in this world, is that actually, you know, you're talking about being a model and you have all of these things, but that is kind of like a snippet of what reality is actually like, isn't it? You know, the way you're treated on the set is the way that social media and, you know, mainstream media treats people. And we have this new kind of ideology of like, oh no, you know, it's okay to be curvy, it's okay to be this. But even the curvy women, like, they don't tend to have cellulite. They tend to be like immaculate. They tend to be really beautiful curvy women, you know, like there isn't that kind of range. There isn't the range that everyone thinks there is, and it's like, oh, things have got better. And it's like, things have got slightly better, but we're a long way from being where we need to be, where people aren't constantly aspiring for perfection. Yeah,
and it's about representation, because I do agree with you that things aren't there. I do think they've got better, because it's about curating. There's so many things that it's about, but curating your feed on social media is really important. I don't follow people that make me feel like that. I follow people that make me feel inspired. Your feed. Yes. So I had at one point had a feed that made me feel terrible.
Oh, you mean sorting the algorithm out?
Yes.
So that what you see.
Yes.
As opposed to your own personal feed.
Yeah.
Okay, go on, carry on.
So I realised, and I watched somebody talk about this, they said where social media goes wrong for people is that they've curated their feed and their algorithm to show them things that makes them feel bad about themselves. Whereas I follow people now who inspire me, who are wonderful, who make me feel good, because they're about the things that I'm about, and they have the attitude that I kind of want to seep into my brain. So that's really important. But I guess we should talk about overcoming it. So for me, whilst on that job, I reached out to my family, I reached out to my friends who could kind of talk me through it and were very much...
Give you a real perspective.
Yes, give me a perspective. And you were very much like, well, Claire, you've been chosen out of hundreds of people. Like, you have value. You're there because you're adding something different. All of those things that you might have said to me were incredibly helpful and incredibly important. I do think that you can't always rely on an outside source doing that for you, because you might not have anyone in your life that is doing that for you.
Well, what's interesting is, as you're talking about that, then you saying, 20 years ago I wouldn't be able to do this. You're new to the game. And actually, I think if you are 20, 21 and you're coming to this industry and you don't have a partner, a long-term partner, you're in a family, you've got kids, you've got all that sort of stuff, you have less of a support network. So you might have your mum and dad. And let's be honest, when your mum and dad go, oh my God, you're so perfect, you don't believe it, because you're like, well, you've got to say that, your mum and dad. If you don't say that, I'm divorcing you. So, I think the whole point of nowadays, you do have that support network, because again, you believe in the people, that what they're saying, because you spent 40 years developing a relationship with your friends and your family and now me. And actually, I think it is a lot harder for younger people to go into this industry and especially because when you're in your 20s, there's like 10 times more competition and it's a lot harder. So I'd like to think potentially it's easier to come to in later life. However, models that are your age that have been doing it since they were 20s have gone through all of that. They've ironed all of that out. They've kind of got there, found their place, found who they are as a model, as an actress, and all of those things. And I think for you, you're still trying to find that, and that is bringing up a lot of these, I don't know if insecurities is the right word.
No, it did, but that's what I'm saying. When I went on that job, it brought that up. I hadn't had it previous to that, and I feel like I've worked through it really well, especially now we've hit on this perfectionism thing. And we talk through it because we're just geeks, aren't we?
A little bit.
In the evening. And we kind of give each other therapy. I don't know, we have an incredible relationship where we just love to talk so deeply about things, and it really helps both of us. And we go on these nature walks and we talk deeply about things and really do a lot.
When we don't, we're tearing each other a new one and throwing things at each other.
There's that too, so don't get it twisted. So I've gone through so much of that with you, and we've talked about it on previous podcasts, this journey of kind of just self-acceptance and knowing who you are and understanding the neurodivergent parts. And I don't feel like that anymore. And I'd like to think if I went on that job again, it wouldn't happen. I'm sure it will in the future in a different job maybe, but...
I think the more jobs you do, the easier it gets. It's the same with practice makes perfect. The more experience you have, the more you can learn. You can't learn from experiences you haven't had. I remember when I did my audition at drama school, and there wasn't many of us that got in at our age, and they kept banging on about, you need life experience. And I was like, I've had life experience, I'm 18. And actually, the point is life experience is far more valuable than you ever realize until you've had it. And then once you have it, you go, oh, I understand the value in that now. And I think for you, every job you do, you become a better actress or model because it's a new experience, and that adds to your artillery of skills and again, experiences. So I think for you, it's actually making you a lot more aware of, again, don't want to use the word insecurities, but aware of the things that you're thinking about all the time, or you're conscious of, or you're, worried about, again, like the nails thing. It's like, well, of course I've got to get my nails done. You wouldn't say that if you were going to work in an office necessarily, or would you?
No, not at all. Because I go into work, and even if I've got a massive meeting, I don't think about my nails at all.
But did you used to?
Yes, definitely before. So I've been doing this modelling and acting like 3 years now. And I think that in itself has been real therapy for me. And I have, like you've just said, really uncovered all of these issues around perfectionism. And I don't think it's a neurodivergent thing. I think anybody can kind of suffer with, and I do think you suffer with perfectionism. I do think it's a real issue. And I didn't realise how many scenarios it showed up in. It definitely shows up in my social life. It shows up in when I'm getting ready or dressed in the morning. It shows up in so many ways. Now I've hit on it. It's like, oh my God. Creatively as well. So when I'm painting, or if I'm trying to draw, or if I'm trying to write, it shows up there because it's an actual block to creativity. It just goes cuts it off and goes, no, you can't do that because it's not going to turn out perfect.
Do you think that a lot of this maybe stemmed from your childhood? Because I remember as a kid, like I'd get so annoyed if I got something wrong and I'd scribble it out and I'd rip it up and I'd throw it in the bin. Or, you know, when I was playing football, if I had a bad game, I'd come home and I'd beat myself up. And, you know, I had this experience where we played against Liverpool and we lost, but I had an okay game. I didn't feel like it because we lost. And I remember standing, obviously now I know I'm autistic, it was probably a bit of a meltdown, but all after the game, we'd all gone up to this little cafe, not cafe, but like this little seating area where we're all sitting having food. And I was just stood, and like all the parents looking at me, and like someone said something like, "Oh, he's been sent to Coventry." Now I didn't know what that meant, which I think I think it's some sort of like a military thing to say that you've been sent to a corner or whatever. But I thought they were talking about Coventry Football Club, and they weren't as good as the team I was playing for at the time. So I thought it was being really offended, and it's like, "Oh, it looks like he's been sent to Coventry." And I sat there, and Mum and Dad were really embarrassed.
Yeah.
And when we got in the car on the way home, they were like, "That was really embarrassing, the way you just stood there and you wouldn't talk to anyone and do this, that, and the other." And obviously my parents didn't know I was neurodivergent. But for me, I was just annoyed that I'd not played better. And that need for perfection had this impact on me that just made me have a real meltdown, because I had this really high standard that I wanted to achieve that I didn't achieve on that day, even though everyone else thought I'd had a good game. But my perception of perfection was off. And I think, you know, where does your perception of perfection come from? Like where, you know, you have all of these things like your painting and stuff. You know, and again, anyone who's a creative out there, you might know this process, that actually any creative thing that you're making, at some point you'll hate it, and then you'll hopefully come back and you'll love it again, and it's kind of part of the creative process. But where is your perception of your perfection? Where does that come from? Where does that stem from, do you think? Like, can you remember?
That's really interesting.
Because as I say, for me, I remember as a kid trying to be good at everything, trying to be the best at everything, trying to have all that knowledge, trying to know all the capital cities, all the flags, all of these things that people would be like, "Oh my God, you're so clever." But actually I wasn't. I just worked hard at trying to know shit. And like, for you, did you have that as a child? You know, like, because my mum and dad weren't that pushy. They didn't want me to be perfect. You know, like they wanted me to behave better a little bit and maybe shut up every now and again. But they weren't like, "You must be perfect." And I know that for a fact that your parents weren't like that.
No,
so they
not
might have
at
been
all.
like, make sure you've got your PE kit in your bag and all sorts of other things which traumatized you. But what can you pinpoint that?
I think it's a really interesting autistic or neurodivergent conversation. It's also an interesting creative conversation, because I think both those play a huge part. I think as an autistic person, I didn't realise, obviously, when I was a child, but having this kind of so I was obsessed with making sure that like every hair was in place. I didn't really wear much makeup, but it was my hair specifically that I had to have, and I'd obsess over it all day and like worry that it didn't look perfect, or my uniform, or just my appearance. It was almost like a currency that I could walk into a room with and feel like I fitted in, or feel like I had value.
Because other people told you that was valuable.
Yes.
Because other people said to you, "You look good."
Yeah, maybe. Or yeah, I did get a lot of compliments on my hair because I spent so much time worrying about it. So
that's the thing, that gave you a feeling of adequacy.
Yes, so it gave me a feeling of worth. So I think really, if you spoke to a psychiatrist about it, they would probably link it to self-worth and a lack of self-worth. However, I do think it ties into the neurodivergency in terms of that very rigid thought pattern and survival mode and masking. You know, it's linked to all of those things, because
so your hair is part of the mask.
Absolutely. And I think now realising in later life, makeup is a big part of my mask. Like I have this signature red lipstick. I haven't got it on today because I've diverted a little bit, but where I used to wear red lipstick every single day of my life, every single day to the office. And I love it. And it's my thing and I love it. And I still do it to this day. However, it probably is part of that mask, and it ties into the perfectionism and having a currency and having a self-worth and having, you know, feeling like you're ready for the world and you have this face for the world, because I don't actually fit in and I don't actually know the social rules and I don't know how to speak to people, and I'll walk into a room and have absolutely nothing to say.
And then you give them a look and make them feel really uncomfortable without even realise you've looked at them with that normal face that you do, that you think's actually just a normal face, but actually making people feel really small.
Well, now I know that because you've told me that. But yeah, so it's really interesting. I think it is definitely part of my autism, But I also think I hear a lot of creative people talk about perfectionism and how much of a blocker it is to their creativity because you worry so much about the end product.
And that's a weird thing because actually the creative process, the most enjoyable thing about it often is the process, and that actually the end product isn't always the most important thing. I think if you're creating a piece of theatre or a film, of course, you know, and a piece of art, you know, like the end goal matters. But sometimes, you know, like say for me, we're making films or whatever, the fifth film wouldn't have been made without the experiences of films 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
And the experiences you gain from those are so valuable that actually sometimes just doing it, just going and having a go and not worrying about being perfect and trying to avoid thinking about perfection is really freeing and liberating and creates much, I don't want to say better art, but you can almost see freedom within art sometimes, can't you?
Oh, I really think you can spot it. And it's interesting now we've talked about this and now we have gained this deeper understanding doing some research and watching people talk about it online. It's really changed my perception because I understand, because I can spot it in my everyday life. I'll go through life and I'll be like, oh, I'm worried about that. I'm not posting that. I said to you about pictures the other day, didn't I? And I'm forever not posting things, worrying about what I am posting or taking it down.
Going back and deleting it.
Going back and deleting everything because I'm like, well, it's not quite how I want it. It's not perfect. It's not this. And it's like, perfection doesn't exist, and if we strive to attain it, we are constantly letting ourselves down. It's really bad for our mental health.
That's a really good point, because what you've just said there is you're being let down by your own aspirations.
Yeah, so because you can't attain it.
And I think it's really healthy to set goals that are difficult to achieve. I think that's healthy. I think when you're constantly assessing how you get to that place, you're constantly going, oh, I did this wrong. You're actually wasting energy that could be spent on still trying to achieve that goal.
Yes.
You know, so instead of going, oh, why did I do that? Just have another crack at it, or just do it slightly differently, or rub it out and go again. You know, like it's the same with almost every walk of life, like cooking. You know, like you put the wrong flavors in. Okay, add a few more things, and you know, like almost life is like one massive cauldron of food, you know, and you have to keep adding a bit of salt here, adding a bit of MSG. It's not actually bad for you, to get those flavors right. Because I think the whole point of life is to play, get it wrong, try again, go back to the drawing board, reassess and learn and develop. And I think we have learned and developed as a relationship, as a couple. Like, we were talking about one of our previous episodes, you know, trying to connect through the chaos and how hard that's been because of sort of maybe your view of what a relationship should be and how perfect it should be. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like I think perfectionism, as you just said, is impossible. And it's really important to keep reminding yourself of that, especially if you've got like your perfectionism needs. It's really important to remind yourself that actually being imperfect is so much better than being perfect.
Yes, and I found so much freedom and play and joy in not worrying about what the end product is going to be. So I feel like I've really changed in terms of what I might post or how I might behave, purely from realizing that I'm constantly striving for perfection and I'm letting myself down all the time. If I just try to remove that, and it sounds stupid because you can't just remove things from your brain. However, you can change your thought processes. And now I've changed my thought processes around it because I understand it. I can just be free. It feels liberating.
But that's also oddly jarring for other people to see as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. I think people around me all of a sudden over the last couple of months, especially online, are a bit like, has she gone a bit mad?
But that's the thing, is freedom looks mad.
Yeah.
Because people are so stuck by the shackles, again, like we're talking about, of society and what's the mainstream media and everyone tells you to be, that actually when you see someone who's free and open, and, you know, like Florence Given, who's on Instagram, someone we both follow.
And
like
TikTok, love her.
Yeah, go and follow her. Like, she's so free and she's happy. And I'm sure she has times when she's not happy, because it's impossible to be happy all of the time. No matter how free and imperfect you want to be, you're still going to hit hurdles and have doubts and insecurities, because that's being a human being. But what's it's beautiful. Like, this is the thing. Mm-hmm. When you're aspiring for that freedom, you can see how amazing it is, and you back that, and you want to support it, and you want to champion those people. And I think when you've come in from this corporate world where you've worked in an office your whole life and you've not been this model, and you did have your perfect red lips and you walked in perfectly and you had this kind of persona, which was of course a mask, people are like, well, who's this person? Because they knew your mask. They didn't know Claire Richardson, or Claire Tilliard, as the stage name says. They didn't. I'm sorry, I'm Marcus Richardson. I'm really called Mark. It's just we're all masking our heads off here, really, aren't we? But that's the point, is that actually these people that aren't championing you now and that are watching all of your stories, but thinking you're a bit weird, sadly, it's them that is locked in, and they find your freedom jarring and triggering because it's their own issues. Now, this is getting a bit deep and a bit wanky, but the whole point is that if other people are annoyed at you for having a crack at something or trying to just be yourself and trying to unmask, then they're not people you want in your life. You want people who are going to champion you and big you up and back you and be like, oh my God, this is so liberating to see you being free like this. Because for me, seeing the journey you're on, it's like the most wonderful, exciting, and it's just wonderful to watch.
That's the thing. Also, I think about consuming content and creative pieces of work that are born out of that freedom hits people differently. The people that I follow on TikTok or Instagram, people that I watch, I don't want to watch the perfect. I'm just like, no, this doesn't make me feel good. I want to watch people being free with themselves and making mistakes and posting pictures where I posted a picture. I had a massive spot on my chin the other day. I had tried to cover it up, but you could still see it. And I posted it anyway. And I was just like, I want to see realness. I want to see real people. I want to see them dancing. And, I filmed myself on a run the other day, and I crossed this bridge and I did this most ridiculous dance. But the sun hit my face and I honestly felt like elation. I could have cried.
It's emotional.
I felt such joy in that moment. And I did this funny little dance and I just looked ridiculous, but I posted it because I was like, that was so genuine. And if anyone who watched that, kind of it hit them, they were just like, oh my God, yeah, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find that joy. That's what I care about. I want people to just laugh when I laugh, or I was prancing about in my underwear on another video and I was having loads of fun.
I'm sure some of the men that were watching were having some fun as well.
Also, when you're watching people, I don't know if
also,
this is a tangent.
Just make a point, I actually don't care. I mean, I sounded like that annoying husband. It's like, I love that you, again, just throwing yourself out there and not caring about it. Like, you're not being vulgar, you're celebrating who you are and what you are. And that is priceless. All of you out there, you could just celebrate who you are. All this thing like, love yourself and all this sort of stuff. It's hard to love yourself, but I think you can celebrate yourself. I think just, I've got loads of imperfections. I've got like cysts, which nobody wants to know about, but I've got things that make me, I've got a big scar here from a mat because I've had stresses and all these things. And actually, for me, I think having all those lumps and bumps and you still loving me really, really, oh God, like you love my imperfections, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing because I have inadequacy problems and I have perfection issues in certain areas, especially with my work and stuff. But you have taught me to love myself. And before I did start doing all this running, I did get a balloon to like 15.5 stone. And at no point did I feel unattractive because you just loved me for who I was. And actually, that's the thing, is that we all get lost in all of these worlds of trying to be...
I'm the best husband.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, we all get lost in these worlds of like trying to be perfect for each other.
Yeah.
Or trying to be, and actually the truth is, if you're just yourself, that's beautiful. That's perfect. That is just what the world intended for you to be. And like, yes, I was having these moments of madness and struggling and depression and really bad mental health issues. And there were times where you weren't supportive because you couldn't be. But the whole point is 90% of the time when you could, you loved me for all of my imperfections. And I was sitting there going, I must do this, I must do that, I must do this. And actually, when I realised I didn't need to do that, I'd got you, I'd got the kids, I got a roof over my head, we had food in the cupboards, we had hot water, we had heat, we had all of those things. I could just start to work on who I was for me to feel better. And that actually the adequacy and the perfection,
the self-worth issue,
is just believe it's just celebrating who I am, celebrating the fact that I know I can, bring joy to other people's lives. That sounds a bit arrogant, but you know what I mean? Like, I know that I have the power to cheer people up and to make people feel special and to champion, championing people is what I get joy out of, because...
And what you have a particular skill in doing, actually.
Well, but I think that comes from my mum and my dad, because they never wanted me to be perfect. We go back to the beginning of this podcast. It's like my mum and dad never put that pressure on me to be perfect. They just asked me to try hard. And, that's all I say to you.
Yeah.
Just have a go. Just have a go. Don't worry about the end result. Just have a go. I buy you those canvases. It's like, just paint something. Don't worry about whether it's any good. You did that amazing painting for Hannah's kid. The whole point is that you just had a go at painting that day. And what a wonderful piece of art that was created just because you had a go. You weren't thinking, oh, this needs to be perfect. This needs to be this needs to be that. And I think, for me, you have made me feel that actually being me is perfect enough, and that is powerful.
Vice versa, actually. Yeah.
But that's where we're at in our relationship now. And trust me, this has taken 6 years. This isn't well, we've been like this since day one. No, we've been together 6 years, and it's only in this last 3-4 months has this sort of penny dropped of what's truly important to make us keep loving each other. And the fact is loving each other's imperfections, celebrating them, and helping each other through those inadequacies, and actually saying you are worthy is powerful.
Yeah, and I think you've hit on something about perfectionism within your life in terms of what you've achieved and what success looks like for you as a family and a couple, because what I love actually about where we're at is that we don't want for stuff. We don't care. Like, our house needs an absolute refit. Our kitchen is falling apart, but
our shower doesn't work.
We do find joy in just what we have now. We have had to work really hard on that. And I don't really care. I've got lots of friends and family even who've got these beautiful houses and beautiful cars and amazing jobs. And I don't find myself wanting anything else. I don't.
Well, we came up with that thing the other day when we were on one of our nature walks, which, to be fair, Grandma gave us some time on a Sunday, so that was a bonus.
Thanks,
but
Grandma.
We were like, we don't earn an awful lot, but we're only a couple of grand a month away from having everything we could ever wish for, full stop. Which I know, a couple of grand a month, that's a lot. It is, don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here now going, oh, it's just a drop in the ocean. But the point is that's attainable. And we all sitting here going, I want to win the lottery. I want to do this. I want to do that. And you set yourself these goals that are just unachievable. And actually for us...
But that's the perfectionism being unattainable. So if you're just kind of happy with what you are and you're not wanting all the time, not wanting for perfection and changing things.
We desire a holiday once a year.
Everybody does. Yeah. There are things that you want.
And a couple of different cars that aren't falling apart, and that's pretty much it, because we have all we need. We have each other, we love each other, and actually that striving for perfection because I think I've probably done it most of my life before meeting you.
I was going to say to you, actually, as a man, it's interesting the difference between the male and female kind of aspect of perfectionism. How do you think it's shown up for you?
Well, when I split with my previous fiance, I think I kind of had this weird, I don't know, real inadequacy moment. I left London. I'd lived in London for 16 years. I moved out of London in with one of my sound men. Not because he's sound, he was actually a sound recordist guy. And moved in with him, and it was a real low point in terms of knowing who I was and what I needed and what was important to me. And it was then I actually ended up having money because I was out of London, and then I went on holiday, and I actually looked at myself in a whole different light. And yes, I did start going to the gym, and unfortunately that became a bit of not an obsession, but I wanted to look better. I didn't get to the point like maybe your ex that was, eating just chicken and rice 47 times a day and exercising his head off all the time. So I didn't necessarily get obsessed with it, but there was a desire to look better. But I don't think it was quite perfectionism. And I think for me, like as a child, I definitely had this desire to be the best I could be. And that felt like the perfectionism we're talking about.
Your performance in sport, maybe it showed up there.
Yeah, definitely. But with football. And actually, when I stopped playing football for a few years, and then I ended up coming into acting and things like that. And when I was at drama school, so when I played football, I used to think I was the best. And there wasn't, especially in my local area, there wasn't many people necessarily on my level. So when I went to then what's now an academy, and everybody was on a similar level, I felt like I was the best. But when I went to drama school, everyone was better than me. And it was really humbling because it was like, oh, okay, I can learn from these people. I can be better. And I think as I've not necessarily suffered with perfectionism as an adult en masse, but it pops up in certain areas of my life. So like with us, I want to be the perfect parent. I want to be the best. So then when you say to me, you've done that wrong, oh my God, it triggers me so deeply. So deeply. Even when sometimes you're being really horrible about it and then it's like, well, that would trigger me. But like, even just another time, like yesterday when I just went and had and you were really annoyed with me because I'd not done what you wanted me to do. Even though I knew that it was the right thing in that moment, it wasn't the right thing for you. And then, so I was so triggered, and then all night, and then we were friends again, but I was still triggered all night because I was just like...
I didn't know. I was about to actually want to talk about last night, and I thought how amazing we did and how much progress we'd shown.
We did though, because you didn't know I was triggered. So like the fact that
I guess so. No, but I'd rather you be honest and authentic about it.
But like we've discussed, sometimes, especially being neurodivergent, you need time to process things. And I slept on it and got up this morning and went for a run and everything was fine and I let it go. You know, but the thing is like you have one view of parenting, I have another view of parenting, and that's what being a couple is. You're not the same parents, and your vision of being a perfect parent is different to my vision of being a perfect parent. So when you call me imperfect, and I feel like I've done the right thing, cuts me, triggers me, it makes me really annoyed because I'm like, no, I've not done anything wrong there. And you're like, yeah, well, you bloody did loads of things wrong in the past. And it's like, yeah, but I didn't do the wrong thing then. Stop being annoyed at me. So it
shows up for you as a parent. It does actually for me also.
But that's what I'm saying. Until I became a parent, I think I'd gone 15, 20 years almost avoiding imperfection, like playing football, semi-pro or whatever. Didn't make it as a pro. Like I didn't used to beat myself up as much. If I had a bad game, I'd just go home, have a smoke and I'd feel a lot better. Whereas when I was a youngster, I didn't have the option to have that medication, and I would beat myself up for days, weeks sometimes. And I think being a child for me was way harder than being an adult. To an extent. Obviously I've made a lot of mistakes as an adult because I was undiagnosed, and again, you know, there's all sorts of things for another podcast on another day. But I think for me as an adult, and again as a man, I don't think men suffer with perfectionism.
I was about to say, I do feel like it's predominantly a female thing. I'm sure there are men, I think especially now with gym culture, it's seeped into the male kind of canvas of problems. But
well, we talk about narcissism a lot in the world, don't we? No, narcissism's a problem. And I think there's a fine line between being narcissistic and a perfectionist, because they're two very, very different things. And actually I think a lot of perfectionism is perceived as narcissistic
in males.
In men, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And because actually the truth is they just have similar traits to females of just wanting to look good.
Yeah. I think it has seeped into kind of the male world a little bit more, but
from people you've
so
known
much
like that,
more
from men that
females.
you've known like that, do you feel like it was a similar perfectionism to what you had? What you have, sorry?
Yeah, so my direct experience with that for a male is very much linked to neurodivergency and a lack of self-worth and trying to fit in and trying to have that mask into the world.
And people think that's narcissism.
Yeah, or an obsession, or, you know, just caring too much about what they look like. But that could have very much been people's perception of me also. So, and the perception of perfectionism is really sad because it's very much the opposite of kind of thinking you're everything. And, you know, that's definitely been an affliction kind of put on me, I think, a lot.
Yeah, I think it has. I think that's half of your problem. So, you know, like, me and Claire have both spent our entire lives being either liked or hated by most people. We're like Marmite, you either like us or you don't, you know. But I think a lot of that, potentially what you talk about, like say in your work environment, people who don't know you dislike you. You know, like your best friend now, she didn't like you to begin with.
Yeah, we
Because her
hated each other.
perception of what you were like, and you're kind of, look how perfect she is walking around the office, and actually inside you didn't feel perfect, but other people perceive you to be that, and that often is kind of part of the problem, because you know how you feel to be you, but other people don't know how that feels, and they think, oh, she must be like this because of the way you look, because you do look incredible. But I think for a lot of people that look incredible like yourself, they don't feel it.
No, absolutely not. I think that is like an autistic female problem, and I see a lot of autistic females online talking about this, that perception of or just not being liked very much because it's a social there's a disability there. I don't have the skills to walk into a room and be warm and chat to people and, you know, make conversation. I lack those skills. So what I do is I put this mask on and I shy away from interaction with people, looking at them. You know, I had this kind of incident in the kitchen at work the other day. Do you remember me telling you, where everybody was queuing up, that one of the insurers came in and did this amazing spread of food, and there was a big queue of people. The kitchen was full, and I walked in to try to go and get some food, and I absolutely just had a meltdown because I was like, I can't stand in that queue. People are gonna, the normal thing to do, the right thing to do, you know, this is my kind of ableism within my brain. Like, the right thing to do is just to, you know, join the queue, have a little chit chat. Everyone's smiling, everyone's laughing. And I know I wasn't capable of that day. There are some days where I am capable of it because I just put my mask on and it works. That day, I didn't have a mask that worked at all. So I just walked straight back out, walked to the train station and bought myself some food.
And do you think that was because of a fear of being perceived in a certain way?
It was firstly the fear of being perceived, because I felt like I walked in and people were looking at me. Well, obviously they do, because anyone walks into the room, you look at who's walking in. It's not because they're looking at me. And also it's just the social problem, the complete. So, and I realised how much of a kind of lack of those skills that I have. I don't like the word deficit, but ultimately it's a deficit in those skills.
So let's go back sort of 5 years before you'd kind of gone on this unmasking journey. Like, how do you think you'd have handled that situation then?
I used to find it easier to do. I used to get on in a corporate setting much better than I do now, like you say, because I was masking and I had that mask.
And you were working 5 days a week,
Yeah.
5 days a week of practice. You get better.
It works. You do get better. Yeah. But it was just, I would have had, it would have all slipped off at one point. So, I just don't have the energy for it now. And I also don't want to exhaust myself in that way. I connect with people in the way that I connect with them, and it works. And I work from home a lot, and I do, you know, my place of work is incredible in the adjustments that they've allowed me to have. So,
and do you think that actually post-COVID, now working from home, doing all of those things, and, you know, that has lent itself to you being less of a perfectionist, less of a masker, but therefore more uncomfortable in those social scenarios? Yes,
because I've realised the epitome of me feeling like myself, and it's weird, I had this conversation with my cousin the other day, is me at home with no makeup on, in my trackies, baggy clothes. That is me. That's me being authentically me.
And that's when you are the most sexy.
Oh, you're the sweetest.
No, but
is what I'm dealing with. This is why this has all happened, because of how wonderful this man is.
No, but I don't. I mean, no, I'm just saying it because actually that.
No, that is true. It's given me the comfort.
It's because you're so comfortable. You know, like I've always said to you, like, you look best when you've got no makeup on, because you're just free. And like I was saying, going back about 15 conversations, that freedom, when you see like Florence Given again, that freedom is so beautiful.
And that's what removing perfectionism does. So I can't remember the question you asked me, but yeah.
Do you feel like everything that's happened with COVID and everything has that unmasking has meant that these social environments that you go into now, because you've got less practice and you're in them less, and you're also more free as a person and unmasked, makes it harder, more uncomfortable?
Yes, so that's what I was saying. So when I'm at home, I feel authentically myself. It feels so comfortable and wonderful and amazing that when I am not doing that and I am masking and I've got all, you know, I'm dressed up and everything, I feel so uncomfortable now doing that. I feel like I'm faking it and like it's not really me. So then the panic sets in of just like, oh God, this isn't really me. So I have to just keep being a certain thing and be robotic. And, so now I've discovered that the perfectionism is a problem. It's almost harder to pretend unless I'm at work modeling or acting. That's different because you're supposed to be acting in a lot of ways.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Is it harder in those environments or is it easier?
No, in those environments it's easier.
Why?
Because I'm playing a character.
But why did the kitchen scenario happen?
Because I wasn't playing a character.
Right.
I'm trying to be myself, but masking. That's completely different.
I see what you're saying. So when you're working as a model, as an actor, there's actor in it now, you are more comfortable with the mask on. But when you now go to, say, your other job, your 9 to 5, you feel more or less comfortable?
Much less comfortable because I'm not a character. I'm me. But now
you used to play that character.
Yeah. So now I try and think of it as in I am sort of playing a bit of as my corporate character, that I just go in and fit in and do my job and I'm professional, and that is just another character. So it's helped to sort of think of it like that.
Well, we've not had any structure to this podcast whatsoever.
No,
it's massively
really been a bit rambly. I think the first half was great.
It's all just gone all over the place. But we were talking about, we've spoken about a lot of the negatives to perfection. Is there any positives to being a perfectionist? Is there any goodness to it?
I think you could possibly say that you're striving for better, which is good in terms of a career or when you're making things. It could be good because you're striving for something positive in terms of you want it to be good.
I see. So it's nice to have an aim for perfection, but you need to have some sort of measured response to not getting there, maybe.
Yeah, well, I don't even think it's good to even think of it as the product and the end result as being perfect in any way, shape or form. So no, I can't find a positive in that. But generally, I think if you're a perfectionist, you do strive to try to do your best in things, which is good.
I mean, I think for me as a parent, trying to be the best I can be is only ever going to be...
It's never a bad thing.
Yeah, but I also have this constant monologue in my head that's saying to me, you're going to make mistakes, you're human, it's okay. And I think... In fact, to be honest, if you are a perfectionist, like that's a really, really good thing to be able to, that mantra to sort of say to yourself is, you're human, you're going to make mistakes, perfection is impossible. But like you say, striving to be better is a wonderful thing. So it's about finding that. It's about finding the balance.
It is, though. It is about the balance. But yeah.
Was there anything you would like to say to people who, like people who've gone through what you were going through, or people who might be trying to find themselves at this moment in time, but have these perfectionary kind of aspirations? Like, is there any advice? Since
I discovered it, understood it, realised where it was showing up in my life, I think the main thing that I would say is that knowing within your very being that you are striving for something that simply doesn't exist, and people will love you for being human and for making mistakes and for showing up in a real, authentic way is what people want to see. Anyone in your life or anyone watching you online or watching you at work, people want to see that you are a human being. Well, interesting you should say that. The people that matter do. Yeah, your people will want that. Your people. I think that's the thing, because not everybody, like we were talking about someone yesterday who hasn't found her people yet. So actually for her, she's very lonely because she spent her life surrounded by people who are like castigating her for her disability, which they don't know she's got because she's undiagnosed. And now she's pretty much agoraphobic. But the fact of the matter is, if she'd found her people maybe at some point, she might not be going through those things. And actually, if you have got people who don't champion you to be yourself, you don't want those people in your life, let's be honest. No, so the right people, I truly believe this, is that the right people will find you when you are being your authentic self. Yes. And so now I've started to be my authentic self and discover it. I have built this beautiful life that brings me joy and happiness. And a new network of people. And a new network of people that I meet, that are meeting the real me. And the people from the old network that are coming along with you are also starting to go on their own journey, because they're inspired by it. Yes, because it is inspiring to other people when you suddenly are breaking down and all of those kind of walls and living in freedom, people are just like, oh. Well, so the right people are very much like, oh my God, I want to do that. Yeah. That looks really cool. I'm going to do that too.
And that's the thing. So then when you stumble across, say, and I keep, third time she's got to mention Florence Given, when you showed me her and we'd stumbled across her, it was like inspirational to see this human being free and just not giving a shit about what people think. And actually, you know, like that is what I would say, like people used to, when I was younger, they used to be like, oh, you don't care, like it's so free. And I did care, but I now kind of understand what they meant is that I would just make a dick of myself. Now I realise it's because I was ADHD.
And not masking.
Yeah, so people either hated me for that or loved me for that because they were like, he's just being himself. I wasn't very good at masking. And actually now I think as an adult, we're talking about the perfectionism or whatever, and I'm like, oh, well, I wasn't really a perfectionist as an adult. I think after I'd made a lot of mistakes in my 20s, I developed a mask and like, oh, how can I fit in a little bit more?
And it shut down your creativity a little bit for a time.
It shut down me.
But that's what
I was unhappy.
Yeah.
I was depressed. I was miserable. I was not okay because I was trying to be what everybody else wanted me to be. In fact, I was trying to be what the people that disliked me wanted to be. So actually the people who loved me no matter what. And they are the people that matter. And I think this is a really good way to end the podcast, is that actually the people that matter will love you for you being you. So just start tomorrow by being you. Stop caring what people think, because actually the people that think ill of you, if you're being yourself and you're being authentic and you're being a good person, anybody that thinks ill of you is a dickhead.
And you're going to leave them behind and you're going to find new people. Yeah.
You know, like the amount of people I've connected to who I didn't used to get on with. So like, you know, in my group chat or whatever, there's people in that group chat that I didn't used to get on with or I was friends with who I'm now tight with because we've both unmasked. We've all unmasked. We've got free from that drama school world where we're all trying to be this amazing actor. Why have I not got an Oscar yet? You know, like that's the point, is that it's a horrible place to be. And now in later life, and I do think it is easier potentially in later life.
You're older, yeah.
Yeah, because you've got more experience, which we were talking about at the start, that without experience you can't learn, etc., etc. But I think just look in yourself and think, am I being true? When someone asks me a question, do I spend 5 minutes thinking about how to answer that question? And actually, sometimes you do have to temper what you say, especially if you're this guy. But on the most part, just let all of those inhibitions go. Be you. Stop trying to be perfect for everybody else. And I guarantee you, your circle of friends and the people around you will just become healthier.
Yes. So life isn't perfect. None of us are perfect, but we're human and we're real. And if you live from an authentic place, you're going to be happier.
You certainly are. And I can imagine us coming back to this another day, because I think we've just done the most hodgepodge podcast.
I think we should split this into part 1 and 2, actually, because the second part was rubbish.
So there we go. Perfectionism. We've just had a chat about it, not being authentic. We've been our true authentic selves. And this one's like, oh yeah, well, the second half was rubbish.
No, I didn't mean to say rubbish. I just meant different.
Well, I'm not having it. Like, I don't care. The whole point of this podcast is it is free. It is us being us. So the perfectionism in you is strong and still needs a bit of work. So I'm not bothered. And if you were tuned out at halfway through, then you won't be seeing any of this. But thanks for listening, watching. Thanks for coming along on our journey. We really appreciate it. Anybody that finds us entertaining, brilliant. And if you don't, then, well, you're not our people.
Roll on by. You're not our people. We don't care. Bye. I'm Claire. We've been the Richardson.
I'm Marcus. Bye-bye. See you later.
Bye.